everyone. Thank you for joining today. I'd like to welcome you to the 2021 i2Coalition Community Awards Ceremony. I'm Jane Shi, Board Chair of the i2Coalition and Deputy General Counsel of Newfold Digital, formerly the Endurance International Group, which was a founding member of the i2Coalition. The i2Coalition is an organization that advocates for the companies that build the internet with one collective voice. As a founding member, we recognize that this was an important need that has become all the more urgent as so many politicians, lawmakers, and others are calling for new legislation that could disrupt the internet's infrastructure without fully understanding how the ecosystem works. The i2Coalition and its member companies advocate for solutions that address public concerns without breaking things. We use the power of industry collaboration to work together toward a common good and a better internet. The i2Coalition is member-driven and its priorities are set by its members. This creates a dynamic community of individuals committed to the same goals that the i2Coalition was founded to pursue, making the internet a better, safer place through education and advocacy. Every year, the i2Coalition Board of Directors honors a member of our community whose work we feel best exemplifies these goals. During the selection process this year, the board concluded that we really needed to honor two individuals, Ben Butler and Karl Zimmerman. I'd like to now introduce Christian Dawson, co-founder and executive director of the i2Coalition. Christian will be our master of ceremonies and will tell you a little bit more about today's awards.
Thank you, Jane. I'm honored to lead us through today. We have two very important awards to give out posthumously to two remarkable members of our community who have made incredible impacts on the internet's infrastructure. Before we get to those important awards, I wanted to note a couple of things. The first is, indeed, as Jane said, we do these awards every year. Last year and this year, the award ceremonies that we have done have been remote. We wanted to state that it's our commitment to go back to in-person award ceremonies next year. And so we've had discussions with our board of directors, and it is our full intention to see you all in person in Washington, D.C. Next early spring. We do not yet have an official date where we hope to have next year's award ceremony in person. Knock on wood, if all goes well. So I wanted to make sure that that was known and that was clear. Moving on, I have I wanted to take a moment to tell people a little bit about i2Coalition and its goals for those of you who are new to our community and came to us because of your associations with either Karl or Ben. We are an organization that's made up of the companies that build the internet's infrastructure, basically the companies that rack and stack servers in data centers and create the infrastructure of the internet that sits above the telecommunications layer and below the content layer. Basically, a lot of geeks in data centers who make the internet run. And we try to bring the collective power of a voice of a singular voice to the companies that build this, that build the internet in a way that does a couple of things. That makes people understand how the internet works so that they do not basically do stupid things that are going to potentially break it from a legislative perspective because they don't understand basically how that functions operationally. The other thing that we are attempting to do beyond providing that baseline education for people about how the internet's infrastructure works is we are working together company to company to try to make the internet a better, safer place. I gave you that background because it is with that in mind, with that core mission of trying to take the singular voice of the internet's infrastructure to make the internet a better, safer place, that we created our Internet Community Leadership Award, which is the first award that we are giving out today. It is named for Ron Yokubaitis. Ron Yokubaitis is a member today of this organization. He's actually with us on this call. And we named the award after Ron because Ron was there doing what we do at least a decade before we started doing it. Not only talking to legislators and regulators and teaching them how the internet worked, in hopes that they would make smart decisions about how it needed to be regulated, but also ensuring that he was working collaboratively with other organizations to make sure that he met the ethos of trying to make the internet a better, safer place. So when we look to the types of individuals that we want to highlight as a perfect example of the types of individuals that are marching forward with our ethos, we have done so with that in mind. I am pleased to introduce James Bladel of GoDaddy, who is going to present this morning's award to Ben Butler.
Thank you, Christian, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I'm James Bladel, as Christian mentioned, from GoDaddy, and GoDaddy's been a member of the i2Coalition. I don't know if quite since the beginning, but very near the beginning, and we've been very active in advocating for its mission in DC and around the industry. So earlier this year, we lost a friend and colleague from GoDaddy, Ben Butler, and I had the privilege of working with Ben for almost 15 years. My earliest memories of him were of our teleconferences for the legal department when we were all in the legal department, and this was before Zoom, so you kind of had to imagine what people looked like based on the sound of their voices, if folks remember those days. And you know how when you meet someone for the first time that you've only known on the telephone, they don't look anything like what you've imagined. But in Ben's case, he looked exactly like I had imagined. He was this gentle giant with a booming voice. And when you spoke with him, you immediately picked up on a few things. First, that he was passionate about his work and tracking down criminals online and standing up for those who were victimized by online criminals. He was incredibly smart, and he was extremely funny. And you know, and I think anyone who met Ben, you know, would agree that that's him in a nutshell. You know, in those early days, it wasn't so much that Ben worked in the GoDaddy abuse department as that he was the GoDaddy abuse department back before registrars even understood that they needed an abuse department. I got to watch him as he worked to break up networks of child abusers and track down illegal pharmaceuticals and all kinds of networks of scams and fraud. And I think it's fair to say, without hyperbole, that there are evil people sitting in prison today because of Ben and the work that he did. And then people took notice. Fortunately for us, criminals took notice, and they decided that GoDaddy was probably a bad place to conduct these kinds of schemes, and they moved on to other areas. But also industry and law enforcement noticed Ben's work and recognized him throughout his career for his contributions and his efforts. And of course, everyone wanted to borrow and copy his ideas. And that's when he and I started to work a little more closely together, because Ben was tapped to work within the ICANN community, and then also got involved with i2Coalition to help elevate the entire industry's efforts in the area of online crime. And this was great for me selfishly, because it meant I got to hang out with him a couple of times a year at ICANN meetings and, you know, have a drink and catch up about work or golf or what to expect when I was moving to Arizona. He left a big hole in our lives, in our industry, and in this organization, and our team at GoDaddy. I'm tasked with trying to replace him, and I found immediately that this is impossible, and that I'm having to recruit a handful of people to cover all the different dimensions of Ben's work and his contributions. But I'm not going to complain about that, because I know, as you do, that Ben had absolutely no patience for complaints, that he knew that the bad guys never arrested and they never slept. And there were always going to be people trying to exploit children and other vulnerable folks and take advantage of them online. And that it was our responsibility and our duty to stay two steps ahead of them. And that's his legacy. And I think that's his calling to me and to the rest of us. And that's the bar he's kind of set, I think, for this organization. So, and why I believe he's very deserving of this community award, this community leadership award. So I thank him. I thank him for his efforts. I thank the i2Coalition for honoring him like this. And I would then, I believe, accepting on Ben's behalf is his family. Jamie is here with us, and I would then turn it over to Christian and Jamie.
Thank you, James. I am Jamie. I am Ben's wife and now widow. I'm going to try to get through this without crying, but I don't know if that's possible. I would just like to thank everyone for honoring Ben and his contributions. I can say honestly that Ben and I were best friends for 20 years, and I know that he would not have been able to accomplish these things. He would not have grown into the man and the global force that he was without a lot of support and encouragement from other people. So I feel like it's important to not only acknowledge Ben, but to acknowledge the people that helped Ben to achieve the amazing things that he was able to accomplish. First and foremost, I would like to thank Bob Parsons. Bob met Ben at a Christmas party at his house and extended the job offer directly to Ben in 2001. He was there because of a dear friend, Matt Hubbard. So I'd also like to thank Matt. Christine Jones displayed so much faith in Ben and got him started in his lobbying effort in the early 2000s. Ben ran what is known as DCU. It was the Digital Crimes Unit at GoDaddy. And that consisted of an amazing group of individuals that came together to make the internet a better place. And I feel that those people are not recognized nearly as often as they should be. So I would just like to give you the name of a few of these people who have contributed much. And unfortunately, Ben is not the only person from the GoDaddy family and from our Digital Crimes Unit that we have lost to this job, to this effort to make the internet a better place and to fight for children. Joe Hanyon passed away in July of 2014, and he was not quite 35 years old, and we lost him to this as well. Jeremiah Heffelfinger is a huge influence. He was at GoDaddy for an extended period of time in DCU. John Harris, Michelle Heffelfinger, Daniel Dickinson, Nicole Harris, Brian Wohlers, Doug Boyles, Shelley Contos are among a few of the people that worked in DCU under Ben and that have helped to fight tirelessly. Becky Robinson, Nay Watson was also there, and a massive force. All of these people stood behind Ben. Their voices may not have been as loud as Ben's, but they lifted Ben up and they allowed him to accomplish the things that he did. I'd also like to thank Chris Rosenrad and McKaylee Nalen for always believing in Ben and helping him to believe in himself. I'm utterly devastated that we have lost this man, this amazing advocate for people who couldn't fight for themselves. But I'm truly grateful to the community for honoring him and showing appreciation. So thank you. I hope that if anything can be learned from this, people in this position need more help. They need people who are able to advocate for them and for their health as well. So thank you, James, for everything that you've done. Thank you to the rest of you for acknowledging Ben.
Thank you, Jamie, for your incredible words. I appreciate it. Please, we appreciate everything that you said here. I'm going to regain my composure for a moment while I move us on in our program. The next thing that we are doing is we have a period where people may give their own tributes if they wish, who are attendees to this panel. If they wish to say a few words, we actually have had a volunteer of Ron Yokubaitis, who is the namesake of the award, to start us out and begin the process of saying a few words about Ben. So I'm going to turn to Ron in a moment. While he is speaking, if there is anybody else who wishes to be next in the queue, you can put your hand up, which you can do within the Zoom interface, and you can be acknowledged. There is no pressure for anybody with either of our award recipients to say anything. We simply wanted to carve out time in the agenda to allow for the possibility that people did want to express some thoughts. So if you would like to do so, please raise your hand and you can go after Ron in the queue. If you have any thoughts that you'd prefer to be written, you may do so and I'll read them aloud. So let us move on. And may I turn it to Ron to say a few words.
Wow. Well, thanks. Thank you, everybody. Christian, for the introduction. And saludos to Ben, saluting Ben and all he's done, especially the compliments of GoDaddy that his sweetheart outlined. But I just want to kind of praise the bootstrap organization that Christian and David had put together here out of drinking a little whiskey after a conference in Washington years ago. Who would have ever thought these folks would have gone out and created this organization, just bootstrap the heck out of it, and put together a bunch of other bootstrapper hosters from found a home. And gosh, look at what y'all have brought. It's really outstanding. So I salute the originators and everybody that comes along, because we understand the force is not with you. You kind of have to find your own way and your own voice. And ITC is a great voice. So to Jane taking over, bless your heart, girl. and or as we'd say down here in Texas, that's all. So, but listen, thank you, Christian. And I just so admire what y'all have created here. And it's really, gosh, the materials you put out, I read and I appreciate. So thank you so much, everybody. Way to go, Ben. Rock and roll.
Internet Watch Foundation.
So yeah, we'd like to donate at least $10,000 to the Internet Watch Foundation, Ben's name, because they have assisted us so greatly over in England to be able to find child porn on our Usenet servers and delete them without ever looking at them, because it's illegal. So another part of the infrastructure in the background, Internet Watch Foundation and Marielle England. So I think Ben would go for that. So we're going to donate in Ben's name to the Internet Watch Foundation, and I hope some of y'all are using them. I think we pay somewhere around 50 or 60,000 a year for their services. But I could not, if I could legally hire a good tech to go through our servers and strip it of whatever kiddie porn is, I couldn't have done the job that they do. I couldn't have hired a tech for 3 times the price. And so I was, if you're worried about that, they'll send you email and exactly where the file is, and they'll just erase stuff and get it off and out of the way. So that's a plug, but I think Ben would understand that they had plenty of their issues like that to deal with. But thank you, everybody. Kudos again to Christian and David Sneed, 2 guys that were drawing it up in the dirt a long time ago. Thank you, y'all.
Thank you, Ron, for your kind words, and your incredible generosity in donating in Ron's in Ben's name to the Internet Watch Foundation. Thank you so much. We are going to move on to the next section of our program. Before we do, I wanted to give one more opportunity to participants who wished to speak up and say a couple of words. While I wait for any hands to go up, I will quickly note that in the chat, Ashley Heineman, a colleague of Ben's, said, thanks so much for your amazing words, Jamie. Ben was amazing and will remain so in our memories, as well as all of his work. And that is certainly true. So thank you, Jamie, for joining us here today. And we thank you for sharing Ben with us. Moving on in our program, we are now moving on to the Karl Zimmerman Internet Entrepreneur Award. And in a moment, I'm going to introduce Jordan Jacobs from i2Coalition's board, a friend of Karl's, to present the award. Before I do, I wanted to spend a moment explaining a little bit about the deliberations that led us to the creation of a second award. This will be the first year that we give out an Internet Entrepreneur Award. When we started out as an organization, we took a look at the internet's infrastructure. And, I mentioned at the very beginning that we wanted to give a voice for the people that build the companies in this space. One of our real fears about the possibility of these, people not understanding the internet's infrastructure was that they could potentially try to solve problems online. There are a lot of problems online. We've talked about some of them today in ways that created procedures that only extremely large companies could follow. And in doing so, they would change the dynamics and reset the bar as to who can be an internet company and who can't. And the problem that we saw with an environment like that is that all of the most innovative things that have come from the internet's early days up until now have come through small business entrepreneurialism. The kinds of companies that come up from originate in a dorm room or a garage or somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And unless an environment is preserved to continue to allow companies to start with, very little, that without a tremendous amount of venture capital or something, we were going to lose the innovative potential of the internet. And so the idea of creating an entrepreneur award is creating an award to identify the kinds of companies who drive that innovation and the kind of leaders who drive that innovation that we are here to try and fight for. And so it was with that in mind that we decided to create an Internet Entrepreneur Award. Now, Jordan is going to tell us a little bit about Karl and why he is the perfect person for us to name such an award after. Jordan?
Thank you so much, Christian. February 2016 was the first time I ever got the opportunity to speak to Karl. Then 21-year-old me reached out to this well-known data center company in Chicago to buy some space. And little did I know at the time that this company was owned by a then 21-year-old Karl. And he personally responded to my inquiry. While our time as a customer was short, our connection lasted for years and years after that. During our almost 15-year friendship, our business relationship changed many times. Sometimes I was the customer, sometimes he was the customer. Once we were actually both in Chicago as direct competitors. But regardless of how things shifted throughout the years, his absolute dedication to his customers, his employees, and his friends never changed. Karl had a smile that absolutely lit up the room and came deep from his heart. I can still see that smile vividly today when I think about him. It's been said that the internet is the great equalizer. Only with the internet can a 14-year-old Karl Zimmerman start a small business that stands toe-to-toe with the giants in this industry. Only the internet allows somebody to start a business with $100 of Christmas money, a great idea, and then let their brains, their drive, and their passion do the rest. Only the internet lets that business grow into the incredible company that was not only an economic driver in his community, but helped people like me get my start as well. Karl was far more than just an entrepreneur. As his business grew, he recognized that many of the freedoms that he enjoyed while building Steadfast were now under attack. Freedom that allowed him to build a multi-million-dollar business from his bedroom. Freedom that made the internet the great equalizer. And so in 2016, Karl and Steadfast joined the I2C to help communicate the impact that the proposed changes would have on the next Karl. And he dedicated his personal time to protecting those internet and those freedoms for the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so while Karl's sadly no longer with us, his legacy is going to be a long one. Not just his place in the hearts of his friends and his family, but to the employees and customers of Steadfast, which to this day continues to provide hosting services to companies of every size, from multinational corporations to the next Karl Zimmerman with $100 of Christmas money ready to change the world. And so it's with his legacy in mind, and on behalf of the I2C, I'm honored to present the inaugural Karl Zimmerman Internet Entrepreneur Award to Karl Zimmerman to be accepted by his mother, Kathy Zimmerman, who's with us here today. Kathy, you with us?
Yeah. She's getting off mute.
Yep, there we go.
Well, there should be a little mute button on the back, on the bottom there. Little microphone
How's
button.
this?
There we go. There we
All
go.
right, thank you. Thank you. I shouldn't have technology problems when I'm with a bunch of techies. I just, Jordan and Jane and Christian and all the i2Coalition members and guests, Ben's family, my goodness, what an amazing man he obviously was. So you just make my heart sing that my son is put in this company of such wonderful people and what they have accomplished, and to be part of the introduction of the Karl Zimmerman Internet Entrepreneur Award. How wonderful. The recognition is really particularly apt. You talked about Karl being an entrepreneur, and he really was. He actually, his first business was started when he was in 7th grade. He had been given a chunk of web space by a large computer gaming company in appreciation for his feedback and for beta testing some of their games. He immediately put that gift to use by starting a web page design business and provided web space for those pages. His first customers were his grade school classmates. And that was back when, in the time, of course, when having a web page was just a great big deal. His first customer was a fellow classmate whose parents owned a farm. And what that young man wanted on his page were his two favorite cows, Fila and Jackal. The business grew, and in no time, Karl's customers were actual businesses and organizations around the country. He had expanded into hosting. His first server was stored under his bed. And by the time he was a sophomore in high school and put that $100 to use, he had a company that was indeed a full-blown business. We had it incorporated, and he named it No Zone. As is the nature of this technology, Karl communicated online with people all over the world. A few he engaged in helping them with do the work. One web designer lived in Korea. Karl also wrote some articles and opinion pieces for tech journals. At one point, an editor commented about the solid nature of a piece that had just been published, but that he had no idea it was written by a 15-year-old kid. Today, Karl's company is named Steadfast, a very successful cloud hosting and managed IT infrastructure services enterprise with its headquarters in Chicago, as you said. But he didn't get there alone. He didn't grow from this sophomore in high school to where he was and where his company is. He had the help of so many people such as you. He put a lot of time into building and getting help from folks, and he has an outstanding innovative leadership team and staff who are continuing Karl's leadership and values and service at Steadfast. None of this would be possible without all the support. The i2Coalition is to be complimented for providing a voice to those who built the internet and work in its industry, ensuring it continues to be an engine of growth, innovation, trust, essential for the global economy. Karl cared so deeply about your mission, as you have said, and he lived it through his business and the other organizations and activities he was involved with. He had a sense of wanting to give back and felt that's so important. His relationships with people like Jordan, that back and forth and giving back and forth was part of his makeup and who he was. So his family, his friends, his associates, and myself, we are overwhelmed with this honor. And we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. very, very special. I even have the award right here that was sent to me that will have a prominent place in my home. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Kathy. That's wonderful. Great appreciation for your kind words, and again for sharing Karl with us. We are going to do the same thing, and we're going to open the floor for the opportunity for people who have come as attendees to speak. And if you don't want to speak, I'll go ahead and read what you post, and that is fine too. We are going to start that process by asking David Sneed, my co-founder here at i2Coalition, to say a few words.
Sure. Thanks, Christian, and thanks to Jordan, who said a lot of things that I wanted to say about Karl, and to Kathy, who I've met at least once, and who I'm very honored to see again. You know, for me, one of the Jordan. Karl's enthusiasm about everything that he did really shined through, and that's something that was very important to me in working with him. He was always enthusiastic about everything that we did with the i2Coalition and in business, regardless of whether it was boring or not, which is a lot of stuff that the i2Coalition can do. You know, he had a great good nature that was very fun to work with. But most importantly to me is that Karl was willing to be himself in an industry where it is often difficult for people to be themselves, and in an environment where it's often difficult for folks to be themselves. So I'm really pleased that the i2Coalition and the board has chosen to create an award in his name. I think that that's very important, and I think it's a great way to honor his legacy.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much, David. I have a few notes from the chat that I would like to share before seeing if there are any additional people who would like to say a few words. I note that Graham Button says, speaking of Kathy's words, that was very lovely. Thank you. Frank and Hillary Stiff say, Hillary and I had the good fortune to get to know Karl over the years. He was a special guy, humble, a great friend, and a key contributor to our industry. We can't think of a better namesake and a standard for this award. Agreed. James McGilvery, I'm so sorry. So proud of the technology leaders I see here today, a much needed mission today and for years to come. And Jeremy Miller shares, Karl was for sure one of the kindest and most generous people I have ever met in my life. I'm going to pause to see if there's anybody else who would like to say any words before I close us out for this event. Hearing none, I've got a lot of people that I need to thank. Jane, I'd like to first thank the board of directors. This has been a project that has been driven by your team and the leadership of this group, who has I think been the group that has made sure that as we build this community, that we have the proper guidance necessary to make sure that we are as impactful as we can be in doing so. James and Jordan, thank you for sharing your kind words today and handing out today's awards, and our recipients of the award, Kathy and Jamie. Thank you so much for being open with us and being here to receive the words that we wish to express about how much we loved and cared about your loved ones. They were an important part of our community. and we miss them dearly. They were friends of mine, and I had the opportunity to work with them face to face on things that we continue to work on. And in doing so, we are going to continue to do so in their memory and with their spirit in us as we fight to make the internet a better, safer place, which I think is something that they cared about tremendously. I'll close out by saying that one of the areas where we got to work face to face is in the i2Coalition yearly fly-in that we used to do in DC and will be returning. I started this out by saying I look forward to returning to that. I look forward to seeing many of you who are on this call there, walking door to door to meet with our legislators and our regulators to make sure that we can put in the effort necessary to continue to advance the goals of this organization that these incredible recipients today and all of us care about. We do that every day, but I look forward to doing it in step with you next year. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
See you then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.